All right. So I'm gonna share my, I need you to enable me to screen share.
Done. Thank you for that reminder.
Okay, now it's good. All right, so I'll just keep you in my other monitor. So if you're shy and don't want to like speak up, you can also use a chat. I'll be taking a look at it from now on, from time to time. Okay, so it's almost a one-on-one. So just let me know if you have any questions. There's been two main updates since we last spoke. Well, there's been some compatibility additions and some improvements to live view and stuff like that. But I won't get into that because it's like really specific to certain cameras, especially Fuji and Leica. So it's like something really specific. So I won't get into that. But other than that, we've had two main, well, actually might be three because I'm not sure when we last had our sessions. So let's say three things that I wanted to present to you today. So one thing is the new exporting flow. When we last spoke, the way to export things was like a little tool tab here, if you remember, and then you could like have your process recipe set up and stuff like that. So that's what I showed you. Then there has been some changes to this flow. So this tool tab has disappeared from my interface. And instead now we have next to the import button, we have an export button, which is like quite logical for some of the users. So now if you just click export with all your selected photos, this is just one because I only have one, but then all of this has moved into this external window, like pop-up window, and then basically the options are the same. So you have export recipes. Some of the options have been simplified. So now by default, it will only show you like the main basic stuff. So it's thought for people who are getting started with software, so that you don't have so many options that will drive them crazy. So basically the export recipes work the same. You just pick one or ones that work for you. And then you pick the location folder like for all the recipes together. They're recipe specific now. So for example, you would pick the folder and then the subfolder, and then everything is like process recipe specific. So for example, here I have like a TIFF subfolder set up for the TIFF process recipe. Instead here, I don't have any, but I could just add like a JPEG folder. And then there is a session default that is a desktop. And then I'm just leaving it there. But I could, like the idea here is that you can set location for all the process recipes here, and then you can just create a subfolder specifically. There's also a new feature here, which is the overriding feature. So for example, if you have a same session and you need to keep exporting different versions of the same file, it can override them for you. So no need to have like multiple duplicated files. That's one thing. Yeah, the rest is quite the same. It's just maybe a little bit more logical set. So instead of like having multiple tabs here, now you just have format and size, which is really self-explanatory, a summary of the process recipe. And if you show the other options, it's also quite understandable now, maybe better. So for example, the watermark is here, and if you want to like watermark your images, then you can just use the text or the image, and then you would just drop your watermark, your logo or whatever, or you can just write anything and move it around and so on. This hasn't changed much. Okay, it's just like different layout. So there's been also, like, to be honest, tons of negative comments and questions about, okay, so this is the new stuff, so where did the old stuff go? Because many of the studio photographers were criticizing that there is not the option to do it from here anymore as they were used to do it. So I just wanted to let you know that that is also coming back to the interface with the next version, which is to be released actually this week. So then you will get to choose what export and flow you prefer. You can either choose this export window next to the import, which, as I said, might be more logical for new users, or you can just stay with the legacy, so to say, tool tab that you will be able to place here again. So yeah, that's one of the main features, like workflow wise. And then we had two new stuff regarding brushes. So one thing I think I might have already told you, just going to choose this one as an example. One thing is the style brushes. I don't know if Polly, if I already presented this, But in any case, I thought it's nice to represent it because it's one of, like, since it was introduced, it's, I think, my new favorite feature, because it's like really intuitive to start working with layers. We saw in previous sessions how to work with like stuff like gradients and so on. But it's just a really nice way to work with layers. So for example, just going to really do some basic adjustments here, just like so. Right, so like some basic stuff and some curve maybe. It will be like the basic adjustments, so to say. And then with these style brushes, we can get to choose how we want to affect the different parts of the images, but just like with the brushes, and then we don't need to create any gradients or anything like that. So let's say, for example, there is like these 3 different categories of style brushes. And style brushes is basically to just pick one of these effects that you want to apply, and then you just brush in, just like that. So for example, let's say there's this one that I really like a lot, that is the add detail brush. And then you can just pick it, and this is a mix like of clarity and certain stuff. And as you can see, it comes by default with a low flow. That means that you have to like brush different times on the same part of the image for the effect to start showing up. So if you just like brush this in, it seems that you're not doing anything, but then you are actually doing something. So I'm just like brushing on the same area. If I click on M and you see the mask is a total mess, but that's okay, because the effect is as we want it to be. So for example, you can see this is adding like some clarity, this is adding like some extra detail to the image. But the thing about doing it like that is that we can really get to choose where we want to apply this effect or where we don't want to apply this effect. So for example, I can see that I'm creating some halos here. So for example, I could just delete or erase this clarity whenever I don't want it, to avoid like this annoying halo. So that would be quite done. Let's say, for example, that probably we need to lift up the shadows just a little bit more, but then still in this part of the image, we have some detail that's lacking here. We don't want to affect the rest. So we have also like the recover shadows brush, and then we can just brush in wherever we just want to be really specific to where we want this detail to reappear. So like this, we can really get to choose where we are lifting the detail in the photos without completely ruining the high dynamic range, or like having a really weird look, like, you know, when you have all the light in everywhere in the photo, it's kind of weird. So like this, it's like we have a good balance between lights and shadows, and we can just choose wherever we want to be more specific. We can also, like, once that we have created the mask, we can also like add some other adjustments if we feel that is right, and if not, we can just keep working with the brushes. So some layers have been created here, but it's like a really intuitive way to work with layers. In the matters of colors, for example, we can get to choose between cool and warm brush. So for example, maybe I want to emphasize a bit the contrast between this warmness of the sunset and this almost like blue hour here. So I could just pick the warm brush with a really big brush and just like have a couple of brush strokes here. And then I just pick the cool one. And then I can just, you know, just create like this kind of effect. So it's like a way to emphasize certain things in the image. And then you can just play around with that and have some, and create some really cool effects. And it's just about like being creative and playing around. And you don't need to be super technical or specific to what you want to do. Just play around with that. And it's a really cool way to get started to use layers. There's also like dodge and burn brushes that you can use for portraits, for example. If you want to do some basic dodge and burning, you can do that into Capture One. And basically, you can just use all of the brushes here for different purposes. And then you can create your own. So for example, here I created like one with a red flare. So if I want to emphasize this red flare, for example, I can just, this one I created myself. And in order to create your own brushes, you just need to, you can see how this red flare is starting to appear kind of there. And we can just add it basically wherever we have red light. It's like a nice example, so to say, like what you can do with this. And what I created is something really basic, which is basically just some red highlights over here in the color balance and some brightness. So that is like the mix of the brightness and the red color is creating this kind of red glow. And that's like pretty useful, but it's just an example of what you can do. I also created, for example, a blue one. So yeah, just some examples of what you can get to achieve with these brushes. I don't know if I'm going too fast. Are there any questions so far?
Yeah, this is really helpful. At any point, if you have a question, feel free to drop it in the chat or raise your hand and you can ask the question. But you can keep going, Maria. I don't see any questions yet.
All right. So yeah, this is something that is new, that is like really, this is reset actually. This is a good example for another of the effects that I like to use here. I think that this is just a very creative way to have layer approach into Capture One, so you don't need to create really specific masking and you don't need to do like even that much. Just work with the built-in brushes that you have and get creative. Here, for example, I would always anyway start with some basic adjustments. So to say, so you have like a little bit of the base. So you have like a nice starting point for that. Maybe, oops, that's not what I wanted to do. Maybe something like that, something like a winter sunset feel kind of. And then once you have like the general mood set up, you can just use any of these. There is this one like the soft flare, and you can't use this everywhere. You have to kind of learn where to use it. But in this case, it's nice because we already have a flare into the image, so we can like kind of enhance that. We can just like make it go somewhere else in the image. Like we can kind of amplify that feel with a flare. And then again, we can just warm it up a bit. So it's like nice. It's a nice effect to have. Like, as I said, play around with that, get creative. It's gonna be fine. This is like one approach to the brushes. So where you just kind of brush around and until you get the feel that you like. And then there is like the other approach, which is like using brushes to create really specific masking. So in this case, for example, I have this example to show you another of the new brushes, and that is like all the novelties so far. So as always, I'm just like adjusting this on a regular way, like nothing so crazy, it's just like some basic adjustments. And then let's say that I added like a little bit of clarity to the background to have, like a good base of enhancing details. And then I really like in this photo, this texture, like this old wall, and there's a lot of nice texture to it, like this kind of crumbling down feel. So I really wanted to enhance that. And for that, I would like to kind of mask all of this part of the wall without affecting the rest, because if we add a lot of clarity into all the image, that's going to be creating like a weird look. Let me show you, like if you add clarity into everything, it's like overdone, so to say, because it's also affecting saturation. So for example, this red is like getting a little bit too saturated or like too dark, so we don't want that to happen. So in this case, I prefer to add just a basis of clarity, and then we can just mask out the rest. If we were to do it manually, that would take us a long time, but then we have a new brush that is been added into the layers panels right here, and it's this brush with some sparks. So if you pick this one, this is called a magic brush, and just picking this one, and then if I right click on it, we have different settings. So we have some tolerance and some refine edge features, and then we can choose to sample the entire photo, which means that everything that's going to be, it's going to sample everything. So if you have different elements that you would like to mask, even if they're not together, they will be masked independently. And the thing with the magic brush is that it's going to create a mask automatically, depending on light and color. So it's going to take two things into account. So the thing that this building has in common where I want to apply clarity is color. So I'm just going to like do some really basic thing like that. And then it's going to calculate the mask. And then you can see how it added everything that was into this part regarding color. And then we can always, of course, choose if we want it to be more tolerant or have less tolerance. And then refine edges, I always put like 100% because it's nice that the mask is not like super sharp. So in the case that something is like left out, that we can work with it independently. So now I can just add clarity into this part of the image that I want it to be. So like adding some structure and some clarity. And that is just better than adding clarity into the whole photo. So we have nice texture and we can keep the rest of the photo as is. So that's a nice thing to do. And this brush basically has a lot of possibilities. So see, for example, here we could probably use it to cut off the background and kind of work with the background independently with another mask. So first of all, I'm just going to crop this background. Same as always, I'll be doing some basic adjustments here. Just like so. Something like that. And then we probably want to work with the white balance just a bit. Okay, something like that, that's more or less okay. Maybe add some clarity. And then once that we have done that, we can just play around with the background. So just a little line, and it's going to calculate again the entire mask. I should probably make it a little bit more tolerant. That will include the areas in the shade. And there you go. Then you have the whole background in a different mask. You can like darken it or play around like with saturation and stuff like that without affecting the rest of the photo. I think this is a nice example. So maybe, yeah, we want it to be a little bit more vibrant, a little bit more contrast, to create a little bit more contrast in the shadows. So yeah, this is just like some uses of the brush. You can see it has a lot of possibilities, and basically it will just help you to mask anywhere. And it can be color, it can be light-wise, and it's like really smart. Normally, I'm not like really into this kind of auto masking things, but I have to say that I was quite surprised when I first started to play around with it. So this is like the new stuff from our side. I don't know if you have any questions or like you've been working with that, even if it's not related with what the novelties, what I talked about. If you want to like say, hey, I've been using Capture One and I had this issue or I had this doubt or question or whatever, it's now the moment to say that.
All right, y'all. Any questions? And like Maria said, it doesn't have to be pertaining to what she just showed you regarding the updates. It can be about your usage, how you've been getting along with Capture One since the trainings. There's going to be another update coming up in December, which Maria will double check with me, but we're pretty sure that you'll be able to update, as normal. You won't have to worry about paying again. The key that you got the first time around should work when you update it in December when 22 comes out. So you'll be fine. So thank you, Capture One, for that.
Welcome.
That is very exciting. Any questions, y'all? Any at all? Now is the time. No question is too small. No such thing as a dumb question. Elsie, are you back to ask your question that you may have had?
Otherwise, like if you've been playing around with it and you want to like just comment on some impressions or something like that, like every feedback is welcome. I'm not sure if you've been using Capture One for a long time or just started since we started this partnership, but we will be really glad to hear, even if it's like your first impression, like how it was, how was the learning process, how was the learning curve. We're actually working in kind of trying to open up the user base for people who are not necessarily studio photographers. So if you want to like comment on your impressions or your experience with getting started with Capture One, I'll be super happy to hear about that.
That's great. Yeah, how's it been going for y'all? Anyone?
They're kind of shy.
Don says, it's an amazing program. I'm still learning. How has the learning curve been for you, Don? Has it been hard to adjust to it? It's pretty smooth and so far, or do the trainings help?
I actually, Polly, I put together some learning resources.
Oh, really? Great.
Yeah, I mean, it's like pre-recorded things. So
Okay.
it's things that David has been working on. It's like just a curated file with all the basic tutorials to get started. Maybe that's something that you would like to share with
Yes. That'd be
the team.
perfect.
Of course, like, you know, he says it's been challenging. So yeah, I can understand that it's not super intuitive at first. So maybe this kind of thing will help.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you for that. Is there anything like in terms of the challenging part, like what has been the most challenging? Anything that Maria can help with now? In addition to the resources that she'll send to me after this, and I'll send to everyone else.
Right, never mind. If you want to send any feedback anytime, you can just, you know, we are taking a look at social media or anything really, or like support should probably be able to help. So just send any feedback. We're kind of starting to build the new updates according to this feedback, and we're really trying to meet a point where, you know, like the exporter thing that I said, like we built this new exporter window because we thought it would be more intuitive to new users, and then it kind of didn't work out for power users that have been using Capture One for decades. So we're kind of reaching a compromise between two things, and anything that you can help us with, it's useful. So yeah, I'll just send over these tutorials and let me know how that works.
Thank you so much, Maria, for your time. I truly appreciate it. All right, y'all. I will share them once I receive them in Slack/email. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Have fun. Bye.
Bye.